Hey everyone, Chris here from CheckSix Marketing, and we're here for another Tesla talk. And today I want to talk about what to look for when you're selecting a marketing agency for your company or for your project, because not every agency is going to do the best job for your company. Agencies are a lot like doctors or lawyers. They have specialties, and if you had brain cancer, you necessarily wouldn't go to a foot doctor, right? You'd want to go to a doctor that specializes in brain cancer. So it's very important that when you're selecting an agency, you select one that works well for your industry, because you don't want to be kind of training this agency to do well in your specific industry. So with that, here are 10 things that you can look for when selecting an agency for your company. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is industry experience, and this is going to sound like a no-brainer, but if you do pick an agency that does not have any experience in your industry, chances are you're going to be paying them some money to make mistakes and to learn about your industry. So you want to pick a agency that has experience within your industry. So if you're a contractor, you want to look for an agency that has done other contractors before. If you're a consumer brand, you want to look for an agency that has marketed, to consumers before. If you're a restaurant, you want to look for an agency that has dealt with other restaurants and that sort of thing. So industry experience is my first tip on what to look for when selecting an agency. Is make sure that they have worked with similar clients in your same agency. Now, you may be in a unique and niche situation, and there may not be any agencies with your exact industry experience. That's okay. Just look for one that has a similar experience in a similar industry. Okay, the second one I'm going to tell you about is when you're selecting an agency is look at their portfolio. Do you like the work that they do? Do you like their style of graphics? And do you like the kind of things that they're putting out? Some agencies really specialize in doing funny and kind of quirky things, and if that's not going to fit with your brand, you probably don't want to select them. However, if that's on point for your brand, then they may be a good fit for you. So take a look at their portfolio and see if you like what they're doing or not. You can also talk to them and see what their style is. Sometimes agencies are creative, but their customers don't let them be creative. So if you want something that's a little bit more on the creative side, make sure you talk to them about it, because they may have a bunch of boring customers, but they may have some capability that they're not showcasing. The next thing to look for when checking out an agency is creativity and innovation. This is going to be important for a couple of reasons. One is because with creativity, of course, you want an agency that's creative. That's why you're hiring them. If you were creative, then you probably wouldn't need them to do a lot of the things for you, but they're going to come up with ideas that you may not have thought of, and you want that creativity. That's really what you're buying in a good agency, is good creativity. So look at what creative things they've done in the past. Think about how the things they've done in the past may be applicable to what you're doing, and if that's a good fit or not. Innovation is also important, because let's face it, things are always changing with marketing. There's nothing static in marketing. The things that worked in the 1920s and 30s, a lot of those things wouldn't work today, and the things that worked even 5 years ago are really out of date. So marketing agency is always evolving, keeping up with the technology, coming up with new ways to reach customers, that sort of thing. So make sure you ask them about their innovation strategy and how they've innovated over the last couple of years. Okay, the next thing to look for when you're hiring an agency is strategic approach. And what is their strategic approach? Do they even have one? Some agencies are really good at this, while other agencies are just really good at making stuff that looks good. But it's important that you have a strategic approach when you're doing your marketing, because without it, you're just going to kind of meander through, and you could end up spending a whole lot of money that you don't need to spend. So having a good strategic approach is going to be important to make the best of your budget, both for the agency and for your ad spend. All right, the next thing to look for when selecting an agency is to understand your target audience. And again, this goes to having experience in your industry, but they have to understand your target audience. If your target audience is mostly older people, then picking an agency that has a bunch of really young people may not be the best bet, right? They may do fantastic at it, but you have to have an agency that's going to understand your target demographics and your target audiences. This is really, really important. Make sure that they are able to speak in the languages that those audiences will understand. So this is where picking an agency that, again, has industry experience really helps. But also, along with the industry experience, they have to be able to speak to the target audience. Okay, the next thing to look for when selecting an agency is understanding your target audience. And what I mean about that is, if you have an agency that's really good at marketing to younger people, and they're very hip and they're up on all the latest lingo and all the latest, emojis and all this kind of stuff, then that is not going to work on a primarily older audience, right? Now, they may be able to shift and they may be able to communicate with that audience perfectly, but you want to make sure that they not only understand who your audience is, but they need to understand what drives your audience, what sort of things your audience likes and doesn't like, and really how your audience feels about different topics and subjects, because nothing's worse than trying to communicate with an audience and not really understanding what makes them go, what makes them tick. So make sure that whatever agency you pick is able to understand your target audience and really put themselves in the target audience's shoes so that they can communicate effectively with that audience. All right, the next thing to look for when choosing an agency is collaborative communication, because in agencies, there are so many different moving pieces that no one person can do everything. That's totally impossible. And so the agency is going to have to communicate collaboratively, effectively, and they're not only going to have to be able to collaborate amongst themselves, which is really important, but what they also need to do is to be able to communicate effectively with you as the customer. So when you're choosing an agency, ask them about how they collaborate amongst themselves. How are they going to collaborate with you as the customer? It's really important to know that you have an agency that's going to work together and use that collaboration to everybody's benefit. All right, the next thing to look for when you're choosing an agency is digital expertise, because in today's world, a marketing agency is a large portion going to be digital. The days of things being on paper and in magazines and newspapers, that's all pretty much gone. That's just a very small portion really of what agencies do these days. A good marketing agency is going to be largely digital. That means making things, in the various digital applications like Photoshop and Illustrator and those sorts of things. But also digitally being able to do advertising and things like that. So ask them what their digital expertise is, because any good marketing agency these days is really a mixture of a good IT company and a good communications company. So ask them about what their digital expertise is and what areas they're good at and what areas they may be weak at, and that'll let you know if they have the experience that they need to be able to do your project successfully. All right, another thing to ask an agency about is metrics and analytics, because in today's digital world, everything is tracked and there are metrics and analytics for all this stuff, and you want to make sure that you're working with an agency that knows how to track those numbers and how to present those numbers to you so that you can make intelligent decisions on what to spend your money on and what not to, because if something's not working, you don't want to keep spending your money on it. And metrics and analytics will help you decide what stays and what goes. So that's a huge part of a marketing agency these days, is metrics and analytics. Make sure that whoever you pick has those capabilities and they're going to be providing to you those numbers as part of their service, and make sure they're not charging you extra for that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about for selecting an agency is pretty common sense, but it's references and reviews. If they're a newer agency, they haven't worked with a lot of people, they might not have this, so that might be a red flag for you, or it may be something you're willing to try out. But a good agency will have lots of references and reviews. They may have testimonials on their websites. They may be willing to let you speak to a client that they currently have and just talk about what it's like to work with them, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you pick an agency that has good references and reviews. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about when picking a marketing agency is flexibility and adaptability. And these two things are really important because marketing is always changing. I mean, from year one to year two, it's going to change significantly, and it's going to continue to change and evolve. And there's a number of reasons for this. Technology changes, the way we advertise changes, the social media networks that people are using are changing, new ones are coming online, other ones are becoming obsolete. So a good agency has to be flexible and adaptable. And if you can find an agency that does that, then that means that they're going to be a good partner for you for long term, because they're going to be able to adapt when things change. If you pick an agency that is really just good at the yellow pages, well, when people don't use yellow pages anymore, you're just going to be wasting your money with them. So that may be a little bit of an extreme example, but there are all sorts of technologies that change all the time. And if your agency isn't flexible, then they won't be able to change with it. So make sure you find an agency that is kind of up on things and is willing to change when things aren't working. All right, so that was my 10 tips on what to look for when hiring a marketing agency. I hope you found those useful, and I hope that it saves you some time and money. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We would love to talk with you more about this. If you think we'd be a good fit for your company, our agency, we would love to talk with you. Go to CheckSixMarketing.com, hit the contact button and schedule a call with us. We would love to talk with you and see what you got going on. And if we're not a good fit for you, we'll let you know that too. But again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you'd like us to help us out with your marketing, head us up at CheckSixMarketing.com, and we'll see you the next time.